Hi everybody, my name is Renee and welcome to the Go Within channel where I help people to go within themselves to find their own answers. I love this process. So the question for today's life coaching episode is, why do we blame the victim? So this is a kind of an uncomfortable topic, but I like to go to uncomfortable places and dig in and hash them out. So there's a lot that could be said about this. I'm just going to talk about some aspects of that. First, we need to admit that, yeah, we do in fact sometimes blame the victim. Sometimes we are the victim of something, or we go for something and it falls apart, maybe a relationship or something in business and in work, and it blows up. And the fingers kind of get pointed at us. It may be something that happened outside of our control, or we may have been complicit in this situation. So there's a couple things I want to point out. There seems to be, as I have found in my own path, that there tends to be a little bit of judgment and blame for the person who is wronged when the situation goes bad. Clearly they had some involvement, more or less, but sometimes we kind of look at them and we're standing from out on the sidelines and we look at them and judge them a little bit. Hey, didn't you see that coming? How come you didn't do anything about it? Why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you say this instead? Didn't you see the warning signs and the red flags? Why didn't you get out of that situation early on and you let all that time go by? Look, you wasted all that time. Okay? Have you ever received comments like that? I certainly have. So, in thinking about this, I had a few ideas and just observations that I wanted to share with you. And if you have some discussion or questions, I'd love to discuss that with you. So leave me a comment. So the first thing is, we really need to accept that we are all learning. And it's easy for someone who's standing in a safe place with a roof over their head and plenty of money and a happy relationship and seemingly like things are going well for them to look at someone who is not doing so well in some area or areas, point the finger and point out what they did wrong and how they were imperfect. When you are not the one in that arena who's getting your butt kicked, it's easy to stand there behind your computer and make comment, fire off all these judgments. But when it's you who's in that situation, you are in a storm because things just cracked open and suddenly you have consciousness. And sometimes when we have consciousness of what we maybe didn't see earlier, that's painful. So we're all learning. We don't always have both eyes open, or we may think that we do, only to later become disillusioned and understand the bigger picture. Thus, we are learning. We need to be kinder and gentler to ourselves, or if you're watching someone else have this reckoning, to be kind and gentle to them. Because we all have our blind spots. Think about your relationships. You probably tend to go for a certain man or a certain kind of woman with certain traits over and over and over, right? Until at some point you hit the ground face down and you realize, I can't go for that kind of person or those traits anymore. I've been through it over and over and I'm finally at the bottom. I know what's going to happen. So no more of a certain kind of person who has certain tendencies. So we all have those blind spots. We all have those areas where we're kind of soft that we tend to fall for. Another thing we do when we judge or blame the victim is we assume that they had confidence in themselves. We assume that they had clarity and awareness. Maybe the person did see what was going on and they did not have the confidence to speak up. Maybe that's an area where they need growth. Maybe that's an area that is difficult for them. Yet here we are looking at them saying, well, why didn't you say this and put a stop to it? Why did you dress that way? Why didn't you say this instead of that? Maybe they didn't know how. Maybe they haven't learned that yet. And now, having just gone through that situation, now they will be better equipped next time. Lastly, when someone is the victim of something, they're vulnerable, they're exposed, they're open, cracked open. So for us to stand on the sideline and judge them and blame them is sort of an insult or an attack on this vulnerability. But this vulnerability is a space where they grow from, and we can grow from. Anyone can grow from. And when someone is open and exposed like that, it deserves to be treated with care, with love, with kindness and nurturing. And in our culture, we don't value vulnerability. We see it as weakness. Why weren't you in charge and on top of things? And why didn't you know what to do? And why weren't you decisive? And why didn't you take care of this? And why not, whatever. The thing is, vulnerability is actually where your courage is. Vulnerability is where you grow. Vulnerability is where you learn and become more and transcend. We need to not shun vulnerability. So if someone is going through maybe healing from a relationship that went south, if you're the one watching that and maybe it's a friend of yours, you can watch and you can help them heal from it and learn what they need to learn without condemning them. The vulnerability that it takes to heal from that kind of situation or others is where the magic can happen. So instead of saying, told you so, you should have known, what did you expect? Didn't you see the warning signs? There were red flags all over the place. They may not have. But blaming them is not going to help them be better equipped to deal with that kind of person in the future. Blaming them and assigning fault is going to make them feel worse. It's going to reinforce that behavior. It's essentially saying, you should feel bad about yourself. And no good is going to come from that. And maybe the underlying reason for someone to condemn is because they care. They don't want to see their friend get hurt again. That's certainly possible. But that's not going to promote healing. At least, I don't think we heal when we're in an environment when we're being judged. I think that's when we're going to hold tighter to our beliefs or feel bad about ourselves. My opinion. All right? Just a few thoughts about why we blame the victim. Again, if you have a comment, question, want to engage in discussion, leave a comment for me below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you will like, share, and subscribe if you wish. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.